While people all over the world are talking about the assassination attempt of Donald Trump, millions of social media users are focused on this woman and her strange body language. But what do her facial expressions and nonverbal communication actually reveal, and are the suspicions well merited? Let's dive in. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Behavioral Arts. My name is Spidey, and I use my degree in sociology and psychology, my certifications in criminal interrogation and body language analysis, and over 10 years experience as an award-winning mentalist to teach people behavioral analysis and practical psychology on stages and television shows all over the world. Last Saturday, during a rally in Pennsylvania, a gunman opened fire in the direction of US presidential candidate Donald Trump. The former president sustained an injury while the event claimed the life of an attendee named Corey Comparatore. While the incident was being covered all over media and social media, some viewers noticed this woman behind Donald Trump. More specifically, they noticed that her body language felt out of place. And the internet being what it is, there are a ton of theories flying around as to who she is and exactly what she's doing there based on this body language. So I thought this was a really great opportunity to talk about not just body language and nonverbal communication, but how we bridge the gap between the things we observe and making a sound conclusion. To help me with this analysis, I'm going to bring in a very special guest who's constantly being requested on the channel. Now, before I bring him in and we look at this footage, there's a really important note that we both agreed on before we filmed this video. And it's the fact that this video has nothing to do with politics. We are looking at the behaviors of a woman behind a political candidate, but it might as well be at any event that has a crowd of people. My regular viewers know that I don't really like talking about politics. It's a very divisive topic with a lot of emotion involved. And there's a ton of places on the internet where you can have those discussions. But for here, I like to stick to human behavior and nonverbal communication. And I really like that we've set up a collaborative rather than competitive environment here. So as such, we're only focusing on this woman's body language, who happens to be at a political event, but it's got nothing to do with the politics. My guest today, backed by very popular demand, is a best-selling author on the subject of human behavior. He studied neuroscience both at Duke and Harvard universities and uses his experience and expertise acquired through 2 decades in the US military to train intelligence officers and agencies. Welcome back to the channel, Chase Hughes.
Mr. Spidey, thanks for having me on the show, man. And dude, when I texted you this clip last night, this is just unbelievable. And I think this is going to be an incredible analysis.
Can't wait. Super excited. All right, Chase, so we're going to start by looking at the clip that went viral, which is a very zoomed in video on this lady behind Donald Trump during the event. And then later we'll zoom out and look at it more holistically, but right now we're only looking at this clip specifically. Here we go.
Watch this shit, dude. Watch. Watch. She sits down. Yep. Watch this. Puts the sign up.
Take a look at what happened.
Shots go off.
She's completely normal. And then watch.
And then she's got her.
What the f? What the f? People are freaking out.
And she's filming.
And she's just like right there.
All right, so that was the clip. But now we're going to look at some of the behaviors that we're seeing. And Chase, a lot of people get a little confused when we do this in analysis. The first phase is just talking about behaviors. We're not making conclusions yet. A lot of people often confuse observations for conclusions. So when we say we're seeing something, they start with, oh, well, maybe it's this, or maybe it's that. We're not talking about why these things are happening yet. We're just talking about in this specific video what we're seeing. Now, as we go on and analyze, that might change as we look at different angles, as we think about this critically. But right now, we're just going to list behaviors. So I'll start. In the video, the gentleman talked about the sign, how she's holding up a sign. Now, again, in this close, zoomed in version, it does appear like this sign is being held in front of her. So it might look like a blocking gesture, like she's hiding behind this sign, unconsciously thinking about hiding or having that barrier in front of her. Now again, when we get more information, we're going to see if that checks out. But for right now, that's one observation. Chase, what's another?
Yeah, if you watch her face and her body, you're not seeing any fear in this. And the one thing I look for if I'm ever spotting fear in a human being is their skeleton moving in a way that protects their arteries? Or is their body moving in a way that's protecting brachial arteries by pulling the arm into the body? Are their shoulders coming up, and the shoulders coming up to protect the carotid artery? And typically we'll see the rib cage pull down to cover up this soft belly that we all have. We increase the amount of bones protecting our belly by this hunch over gesture. You'll see a lot of the people in the crowd do that, but we don't see any of that behavior here with her. And we're also not seeing a fear facial expression. And anytime you see this, you can see it at 100 yards away. Somebody that's in fear, these corners of the mouth here will draw almost backward toward the ears. You're going to see this kind of pulling back, and you're going to see these little ligament things right here jump up in front of these arteries. This is a sternocleidomastoid right here that jumps up and protects those little carotid arteries right there. None of that behavior. And this is a fuzzy video. It's still clear enough for us to have seen that facial expression and those body movements. What about you?
Yeah, absolutely. Just to add to your fear comment there, another thing that we see with fear and with a lot of the emotions that happen with assessment, so fear, surprise, even anger, we see the eyes open up because research has shown that the more the eyes are open, the more data we take in to try to assess what to do. And although she's wearing sunglasses, so we don't know if her eyes are opening, it's usually something you could tell in the rest of the face because even the eyebrows open up. There's this open expression on the face. So the body closes, the face opens up. And we're not seeing that. You were also talking about, some of the behavior in the crowd. And what's really interesting is at the very same time, she's matching the crowd, but also she's not. In terms of movement, she's matching the crowd. She goes down with everyone else. But we're not seeing this thing that we're both very familiar with, which is looking around the crowd to take a social cue, to figure out what to do. And the reason you're familiar with this is because you've studied these kinds of situations a lot. And for me, we're going to talk a lot today about my experience with magic and mentalism. And when we see a really good magic trick, something that we really can't explain, it actually triggers our survival instinct. We're scared for a moment. Because we can't explain it to that degree, we look for answers and we go into panic mode. So we typically see people look around like, what do we do? What's going on? Oh my God. It's so common. If you watch magicians on social media, you see this, they look around at each other. There's none of that. She's matching the movement, but she's not looking around to see what's going on. What are we doing? Guys, what's the situation here? Back to you.
Absolutely true. And one of the things why we do that is it's rooted into our DNA. And you can see this in any species. If you just imagine a herd of deer, 8 or 9 deer standing out in a field, eating some flowers and stuff, and one deer goes, huh? Like they just heard something and like sticks its head up really quick. All the other deer start checking each other for I'm going to check the other deer first to see if they spotted something before I did. So that's where all mammal brains are shortcutted to see what is my tribe doing? What are the animals around me doing? Then I'm going to search for something because it's likely someone else saw something first. So initially I saw this clip on X, or formerly Twitter, and it's zoomed in, just cropped down to this tiny little thumbnail of existence here. It's like I'm trying to look at a crowd through a McDonald's straw. And that's kind of what we're doing in this video. So in this clip alone, you can see one thing that a lot of people are commenting on. And these people are saying, well, she's looking up toward this position of the sniper. Multiple times, she's kind of looking up at that position over there, keeps looking. And that, man, if you just look at it with this one clip right here, that looks a little weird. And that looks maybe suspicious. Maybe that looks suspicious if we're zoomed in like this. And I'm excited to see some context, and hopefully we can zoom out on this and take the straw away from our eye.
Beautifully said. Another thing that a lot of commenters are talking about on social media is her phone. How it's immediately in her hands, almost like she's ready, almost like she's already recording. And when the panic happens and people are, shuffling about, trying to figure out what to do, it's still up and it's up and it seems like a big priority for her. And again, remember, this isn't analysis yet. We're just looking at this behavior. The phone's out, it's recording. Of course, context is going to help us understand this a little bit better. But for right now, yeah, it seems odd how in this moment where people are trying to figure out what's going on, we're hearing panic in the clip, she's got her phone out. That seems to be a priority.
And I'll be suspicious of anybody in any crowd where everyone's panicking except one person. And especially one person that looks like they're doing a job or that they have a task to do. That looks very unusual for the desire to complete a job to completely trump the desire for survival and safety. And there's got to be some things in place for that to happen. I think hopefully we can dig into that here in a second.
Yes, sir. And one last thing that we wanted to talk about, Chase, which I would like for you to talk about because this was in our conversation a main point for you as well, is the sense of focus that she has. You kind of touched on it there for a sec, but we can even elaborate a little bit more on she's focused. She seems to have her focus on one thing or individual. And what is that?
When we do herd checking, we're checking the other members of the herd to see if there's safety. You'll see lateral eye movement, lateral head movement, looking back and forth. And somehow the priority to keep that phone pointed directly at him, no matter what's happening. Someone's moving her. She's kind of moving with the crowd and just kind of bending with them, but she's maintaining the steadiness of that phone. That I've never seen behavior like that. And I've done 9 solid deployments to crazy areas of the planet.
Yeah, your stories haunt my dreams. That's how crazy they are. Okay, now that we've seen the behaviors from that zoomed in clip that everyone's talking about, and for sure body language indicates this and that, we're gonna zoom out a little bit and see what different angles can provide in terms of context. So I found 2 angles that are zoomed out. And one of them was really, really hard to find, but there's something I just love about it, and we're going to talk about it. But let's just now look at the 2 zoomed out videos in succession, and then come back and see how they kind of help us get a more clear image of what's going on by zooming out, which is counterintuitive, but works.
It's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old. And if you want to really see something that said, take a look at what happened. Take a look at what happened.
Okay, so I want to start with the first thing that immediately jumped out at me. The first bit of context we get is that it's not her sign at all. And in the original video, the guy who's commenting on, it was on TikTok, but then it was used on X as well. He's saying she sits down, puts the sign up. So it's not like he's introducing a new subject. She sits down and the person in front of her puts the sign up. So he's at the very least very much insinuating that it's her sign.
She sits down. Yep. Watch this. Puts the sign up.
And I must admit, when I saw the zoomed in version, especially with the guy commenting saying she sits down, puts the sign up, it made sense to me that she sits down and she puts the sign up. But the moment we zoom out, we see that it's not even her sign. Chase, what I'm curious about is, in the way that he says she sits down, puts the sign up. It almost seems like there's a little bit of distancing in the language because he doesn't reiterate she or puts her sign up. He says she sits down, puts the sign up, and like there's that bridge at the end, like look at this, there's more coming. So I wonder if, whether it's conscious or subconscious, he kind of knows it's not her sign, but he's just trying to get that excitement going. What do you think?
Yeah, I think he's wanting to create something that, people find entertaining. And I also think that he verbally zooms in on this. So he uses words to zoom in on this clip as well. But I'm also willing to go on a limb and say there's a chance that his cognitive bias about something being present here made him ignore this in the zoomed out clips. And no doubt, if he's clipped this and trimmed it and hopefully looked at some other things and examined them, hopefully he's seen that. And maybe he didn't realize it. Maybe there's a genuine thing there in his brain. He's saying, I want to see that woman holding that sign. She needs to have some kind of barrier gesture. That might be happening. One thing that we're also seeing here is that there's other people. Now we're seeing other people that don't have a fear response, especially this guy in the fedora and the John Lennon glasses, who's just chilled out to the max back there, just kind of wondering, what are all you people doing? But I would say the difference between him and this woman is that he looks around. He is confused. He does crowd checking, or what we called earlier herd checking, checking around to see what's going on. Is there someone else who knows something that I don't? So we do see still the confusion we would expect and the herd checking, the threat checking that we would expect. And we still don't see that in her. And she does not do any of that. There is no confusion in her behavior whatsoever. So this guy is an anomaly, but even no matter what it is, maybe he's been to meditating in a Buddhist camp for 30 years and that's chilled him out to this point. But still, no matter what's going on in the upper part of our brain, that mammalian brain system still takes over. And that's where you see this confusion. Do I need to do something? How do I need to behave or act in this situation?
Absolutely. And I'll even go beyond that to say that we can point to both of them specifically and go, there isn't a fear response. But overall, if we look at that zoomed in version, we assume in our heads, given the noise and given the way the guy's commenting in a panic, that everyone around was really panicking. Even holistically, as you look at that crowd, overall, yes, there's confusion. There's certain people have fear on their face, but overall, there isn't this, oh my God, let's get out of here. A lot of people are kind of confused looking around. Chase, I wanted to ask you this. Given that we're getting the audio from a very specific source, we're hearing something that might be different on that stage. I mean, we both spent a lot of time on stage, so we know that sounds could be different from here than they are from there, than by the microphone, than back in the room. But you've been in a lot of panic situations. Is there a chance, given what we're seeing in this crowd, that the threat wasn't immediately obvious to everyone there? Because overall, there's quite a few people in that crowd who aren't in mega panic mode right away.
Yeah, I will tell you, in the Middle East, there's when bullets start pinging across a bunch of Humvees, even being in the Middle East, you're holding a rifle that's strapped to your chest, helmet on, you're rolling down a street, knowing that a potential for combat might exist. So often when that happens, it takes a few seconds. And these are trained combat operators. It takes a second or two to process, oh, that wasn't a rock hitting the side of this truck. That was a bullet. So even in operators, it takes a little bit of time. It's not immediately apparent. And somebody watching the clip, retroactively knowing exactly what's happening. They're watching a clip and the title's right across the screen. It says attempted assassination. And all of that gives us a pre-knowing. So I know what's going on. So in my head, I'm saying this is how a person should respond to an attempted assassination, but none of them know that yet.
Exactly. We're going in thinking, okay, when's it going to happen? When's that moment? Oh my God, it happened. Why isn't anybody reacting? Whereas nobody gave them the title of this video. You know, to them in their head, it's sitting at rally on a nice day, you know, hanging out. Like it takes a minute to adjust and to know, oh my God, that's what's going on. I mean, this is why we have the freeze response. Freeze, fight, or flight. Freeze comes first. We're assessing.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So I'm sure that you saw this. I don't know, but I think you might have seen this. The face moved around, and her face moves differently than what I think literally everyone else on that entire stage. Her face moves differently, and it looks like a smile. At first, I thought it might be contempt or fear, the mouth moving this way. But as maybe you'll explain in a second, we have this vertical nature to smiling. And it looks like if you go back and forth, you can see the cheek muscle getting a reflection on it and then not getting a reflection right during that moment. And this is as the first shot is happening. And as a quick baseline, she smiles to someone in the audience just before all of this crap is going on. And she does a quick flash of a social smile and uses the identical muscle groups to do that to another person. So I wouldn't call this 100% a smile. It's grainy video. It's really zoomed out. What did you think?
Yeah, so I think you're making some great points in that we can't know for sure that it's a smile, especially because she's wearing big glasses, so a lot of it's hidden. It's a pixelated video, and literally we did this side by side together where we looked at the one zoomed out version and the other zoomed out version, and in one of them, we pretty distinctly see the corner of the mouth going up, forming a line on the side of the nose here, which, yeah, like you said, could be, you know, with contempt or some sort of scrunching if you're adjusting the glasses, or even squinting. These are all things that we might see really quickly like that. On the other frame, we literally went to the same moment. And although you see like a shadow change on the face, we see no movement of the mouth. So it's pixelated, it's grainy, it's weird, we don't know. But the one thing we do see in both is, like you said, something I look for with smiles is the bubble cheeks. Because when we smile, this inflates and we see a reflection. And as you know, when I'm on stage doing my readings in the crowd, this is one of the things I could see even from very far, because all of a sudden I see reflections on a person's cheek. So I know if someone's having a good time, I know if someone's smiling, if someone's having a pleasant memory. For example, I might say to everyone, think back to your life and think of a memory that's important to you. All of a sudden I see some reflections on the cheeks. Okay, we have some happy memories here. So I'm with you 100% on that, but I also like the way you spoke about it with caveats. It's so quick, it's so pixelated, it's so awkward that we don't know for sure that it's a smile. If it is, it's bizarre. A smile doesn't belong there.
I've got one question for you. Have you ever seen like the weird clips they have on like Twitter, TikTok, where it's like a glitch in the Matrix and they film this weird thing going on where like weird stuff is happening with football players and stuff? Did you see it in this video?
I'm not an expert on that. It's not something that I know to look for, but I know that when you have low resolution, the camera is often just taking its best guess as to what's there and it's filling in blanks.
What I meant was, did you see like two people behaving similarly or moving at the same time?
Oh, yes. Dude, yes. In my notes, it says it here. My notes are chicken scratch. I called it the synchronized swimming. Is that what we're talking about?
Yes.
You know, okay. Yeah. Dude, yes. Oh my God, yes. I'm so happy. I didn't even tell you that because I was gonna do what you just did. I was gonna ask you, did you see the thing? You beat me to it, but whatever. Yeah. So there's a moment here where if this was an Olympic event of synchronized divers and you took her and one other person in the audience from the second zoomed out clip, they would get a 9.8 in terms of synchronicity. It's insane. Guys, take a look at this. We're talking about the guy who is standing right now on our left. The guy who's standing up in a white polo with a black stripe across, red cap, sunglasses. Look at him. And in your peripherals, look at her as well. At the moment it happens, focus on the moment they both turn to face us, or more likely, look towards Trump to see what's going on. And then look at the rhythm at which they crouch. It's eerie. In fact, I'll play it for you guys a couple of times because I really want you guys to see how synchronized this is.
Take a look at what happened. Take a look at what happened.
I think the biggest and only difference between those two, one of them has a definite and definitive purpose. Like they have a purpose of doing something that I think an average 6-year-old would be able to say, yeah, that's the most important thing for her. And the other guy doesn't seem to have a dedicated purpose. And that would be just holding that phone as steady as possible on the action. And I'm just surprised that the phone went up and started recording like the fastest recording from incident to recording time, like in history. Because, like you watch all these videos online, and unless it was recording way beforehand, you're missing the beginning of all the action of everything.
And here's the thing about this. So the reason this stands out to you, me, or anyone, almost on an instinctual level, is because we understand human needs. So listen, you've studied psychology. My degree is in sociology, so we both extensively studied Maslow and the hierarchy of needs. And you've got some great work on needs that we're going to talk about in a second, but the basic model for human needs, and of course, there are exceptions to this. You can criticize certain scenarios where this doesn't happen, but in most cases, this is a pretty good model for our hierarchy of needs. So at the bottom, we have anything that has to do with feeling safe, feeling sheltered. So anything that's survival related is towards the bottom. And as those things get fulfilled, we move up towards getting a social circle, social approval, move towards esteem, self-actualization, legacy, all these things. Now, Chase, given that, I have made an updated hierarchy of needs for the 21st century. And I call it Spidlow's hierarchy of needs. And I'd like to know what you think of this. And it looks a lot like this. So there it is, Spidlow's hierarchy of needs. And what I've slapped there is validation on social media. Now, Chase, I'm not even going to really explain this to you because you know exactly why that's there and how we see this sometimes in behaviors.
And this is the reason that public speaking is the number one fear above death, above dying. People say public speaking because rejection and isolation are the things that we fear the most. So I'm going to get rejected by doing something, but I can get a mass degree of acceptance, popularity, and significance, all because I captured the right video or I did the right thing. I'm going to get attention from lots of people. And this social media confuses the part of our brain that's designed to handle a very small tribe of three-dimensional breathing human beings and confuses it with all these people. So the fear of judgment is higher than it's ever been, exponentially higher than it's ever been. So I can totally understand how that gets down here. We might even update the fight or flight model to be fight, flight, freeze, and film being the alternative response.
Wow. Yeah. And it's crazy how often I see this nowadays, you know, whereas back in the day when you would start performing for someone or doing something interesting, you know, people would, you have their attention. Wow, it'd be a social thing. Now, the second there's potential for something exciting, the first reflex, phone comes out, phone comes out, phone comes out. We are watching life through the lens of our phone. It's unbelievable. And it's a reflex. It's not even thought out like, oh, can I use this on my social media? People care. There's no thought there. It's, oh my God, something exciting, boom, phone. And they're dead focused on that.
Yeah, and I think it's a dissociative process where I'm dissociating from what's going on. Because let's say I'm like, we see it with kids and with people that take their kids out to a big fireworks show. Their kids are running around. They're not making memories. They're relying on the presence of a movie to become the memory. And I think it puts us like out, it disconnects us, it dissociates us from what's going on. And maybe that is a way that people are also getting more comfortable with traumatic stuff going on because they're not even looking at the event. They're looking at it on the screen and making sure their priorities line up to make sure that they're getting a good shot. I don't think that's what's happening here for social media, or else we would have seen this video. I'm not going to sit here and pronounce what it is, though.
Yeah, so that was my reflex as well, to be like, I've seen this behavior to where even in a moment where you're looking at a person going, what are you doing? Put your phone away. That phone is out. But then where's that footage, right? If the priority here was to get this video, where is that video? So yeah, these are all important questions.
And if the priority is to get the video, she had a faster response time than any human I've ever seen on Earth, ever. She was getting the phone ready before the first shot. You could see her looking down and checking it. I think she checked it twice. And I'm assuming that she was getting the phone ready, but the only thing in her hands is a phone, and she looks down into her hands a couple of times.
Yeah, I'm going to push back on that. So I'm going to push back on that in saying that being at this rally, sitting 5 feet behind the presidential candidate, is in and of itself an exciting thing. So I don't think she was necessarily there to film a bullet shot. She could have just been there to film Donald Trump on stage, which is very exciting and would contribute to her clout as much. Chase, it's actually really funny because when we were talking about that reflex to film things that sometimes overrides other important things, you were talking about how it fills a lot of social needs, which is coincidental because when I talk about that, this reflex that we have to film everything immediately, when I talk about that in my seminars or to people, I actually reference your work and this beauty, the Behavioral Ops Manual, which is, I think also a world record holder for the biggest spiral bound. Like, where did you guys get these? Like, where did you get, there's a story behind this. Where did you get something with this circumference to bind a book?
It's a hidden mountain range in the Himalayas. There's a specialist out there that we go see.
Okay, I felt that that's what it was, because this is like, it's also easy to transport because you can wear it as a bracelet and just bring it with you wherever you go, which is something I like to do. But anyways, the Behavioral Ops Manual, this is Chase's life's work on profiling human behavior, persuasion. Chase, there are things in here that, like, I think a lot of other people would keep it close to the heart, but like, you've really put a lot in this. And anyways, great book. I'll leave a link in the description if you guys are interested in learning more about this. But you go extensively into the social needs that we have in here, which is your needs model. And what's really interesting is that if we look at some of these social needs, to name a few: significance, approval, acceptance, these are all things that we behave in social ways to attract these things. When you post a nice clip on social media of something you did, you get a lot of these things. Like I said, it checks a lot of the boxes from your list of needs. So it's interesting that you related it to our needs. When I talk about it, I reference your work specifically on this, on social needs.
Well, thanks, man. Yeah, the social needs, there's 6 social needs, and we wrote those to indicate what a person needs from other human beings. Not like, what do they need in life or what do they need in general? I want to know what they need from another human being. I'm training intelligence people to go do some crazy stuff, and they need to figure out what makes a person tick really fast, because all of our needs, we grow up needing different things from social environments. That is dopamine. And we get neurotransmitters from that, tons of neurotransmitters from that. And it's a feel-good mechanism. So if I'm a psychologist or a hostage negotiator, or I'm operating on a crisis hotline, the faster I can get to find out what makes that person tick, the faster I can help them, the faster I can talk somebody out of a problem, anxiety or depression or eating disorder. I need to find out what is making that person tick so I can help them a lot faster. And that's why so many therapists use this tool.
So Chase, now that we've seen some of the behaviors and we zoomed down, we got a little bit of context, we're in a better position to try to form a conclusion here, to try to figure out what might be going on. And a lot of people in today's world are very premature with this. The moment they see a sign of something, they immediately draw a conclusion, as opposed to making a list, critically thinking, and seeing how it comes together holistically. So here, given everything that we've seen, are we in a position to where we could conclude something with certainty about this woman?
It's certain she's likely an alien covert operative sent from one of the Jupiter moons. I read this on Twitter. So you're going to see a lot of that stuff online. And I think one of the reasons that we want to do that is our brain is addicted to making shortcuts. I want to bypass I want to bypass as much work as I can. I'm not calling anybody lazy. That's how we work. That's why we can drive a car and tie our shoelaces and make scrambled eggs, because our brain memorizes patterns and takes shortcuts every chance that it gets to save energy. I think there's a presentation that you always give about mental shortcuts. It's one of the best I've ever seen. The first time I saw it, we were hanging out together in Florida, and you showed it to me one-on-one. I was 4 inches from this thing going in front of my face, but I've seen you do it on stage a whole bunch of times. And I was watching this with, like, you know me. So you've seen me try to figure out everything you ever do. And it's fascinating to watch my own brain go into shortcut mode. And the trick works because of those mental shortcuts.
Yeah, I'll do it. I'll do the card thing that you're talking about.
We're going to keep it in the video? Let's do it.
Yeah. So let me just adjust the angle here a little. Here's the thing. First of all, you have to realize that the only reason that I have a career as an entertainer is because our brain makes shortcuts. So every magic trick, every mentalism trick you've ever seen, the reason you're fooled by it and you go, oh my God, that's impossible, is because your brain took a shortcut and assumed something in that path that with our body language or with our words, we make the audience assume, but isn't the case. So this is the example I use in my presentation, and it's done with a shuffled deck of cards. So I want you guys to see legitimately shuffled up deck of cards, and they are all different. You guys can see that. So What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through like this. Chase, just say stop randomly at some point.
Stop.
Right here. Okay, so you stopped me right on this card over here. Now, if you were here, I would tell you to choose a card or touch a card, but you're not, so that's the way we did it. I'm going to close my eyes and I'm going to hold this up to the camera. Chase, can you see that card? Is it very clear? Is it in frame?
The front one, right?
Yeah, this one over here.
Yeah.
Can you remember that? Okay, so everyone remember that card. And I don't know if I'm in frame. I'll try to keep this in frame because I can't see. I'll take a step back like this so you can all see this. Keep your eyes on that card. I'll keep it like this, sticking out over here. And you'll even see me push it in like this. And my eyes are still closed. And I'm going to sit like this. So the card is now in the middle of the deck. Now, of course, at this point, a lot of you are watching this very critically because Chase built it up. But in a normal casual setting, I do that. You touch a card, it goes in the middle of the deck. Your brain has already taken two shortcuts. It's assumed two things. It's assumed that I can't possibly know what the card is because I was looking away. And it's assumed that I can't possibly know where the card is. I mean, it's somewhere in the middle, but I can't possibly know exactly where. Both those assumptions are incorrect. I know that the card is the 3 of spades. And not only do I know exactly where it is, it's actually here at the bottom of the deck. So what happened there is your mind made a series of assumptions. Let's take a random card once again. King of spades right there. So in moving downwards, your mind just follows the movement. So think of a car driving through a tunnel. You see a black Honda Civic enter a tunnel, and then a black Honda Civic exits that tunnel. Your mind assumes it's the same car. For that same reason, if I show you this card up here and move down there, you assume that that card is yours. And of course, that's exactly what it looks like. And then I push it into the middle of the deck, and it's already too late. Your mind already made the assumptions because the King of Spades is already at the bottom of the deck. And what's going on is essentially this. The card is here, and on the way down from this position to this position, my fingers are going to work, and I'm just pulling the card out like this and repositioning it here. So by the time I come down here, you think this is your card, because it's the one that was sticking out and forward, but your card is already gone, and I can just steal it to the bottom of the deck like this. And this is where a magician could do anything with it, right? At this point, when it's at the bottom of the deck, I can give the deck a cut, and I already have your card over here. So it could go to the pocket, it could go to my shoe, I could do whatever once I know what it is. But the point is, all this works because your mind made assumptions. And to be truthful, life would be impractical if we didn't take these shortcuts. Every morning you would wake up, see your dog, and you would have to do like a DNA test to make sure it's the same dog that was in your house the night before when you went to bed. Instead, we have no reason to believe it's not the same dog, so we just make those shortcuts and assume. It just makes life easier to navigate.
I love the way that you described that. It was so perfect. And it encapsulated all of interrogation in that. And that's a whole nother video maybe we can unpack. But I think there's some similarities between magic, persuasion, influence, interrogation, all that kind of stuff. And that was awesome, man.
Thank you. And yeah, 100%. And we talked about this before, to how it's crazy how the underlying principles of those shortcuts is in every type of social interaction, interrogation, interview, performance. It's everywhere because it's how we function.
Yeah.
And basically the reason we're talking about assumptions, shortcuts, and conclusions is because very often we see people who will see one little thing, and because they've already made up their mind, they go from observation to conclusion. So with that being said, what do we have in this specific situation if we don't take shortcuts? If we follow the actual reasoning, I think it's safe to say that given what we've seen, we can make the assumption that we are not looking at a woman here who was surprised or scared by a gunshot. Would you say that's a fair statement?
I would, yeah.
Yeah. So what that means beyond that, does it mean she knew that something was going to happen? Does it mean she never quite registered that this thing happened? That's a shortcut. That's somebody taking these behaviors and jumping to a conclusion that might be faulty. We could feel a certain way. We could say, I'm thinking it's this, I'm thinking it's that. But I don't think that in these behaviors we have anything that's allowing us to be certain, 100%, that it's one or the other. All we know from these behaviors is we are not seeing someone who is responding in a state of fear to a gunshot.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree.
Do you want to add anything as a closing remark?
So you might have just noticed a cut, an edit in the film right here. Spidey probably trimmed that, but he asked me if I had anything to add. And right as he was asking me that, there's an engine sound in the background. It was a kind of a loud engine sound. And instantly in my head, I even had a visual image of this happening. I thought my kids were jumping on the four-wheeler to go run around the property before sunset, because it's 7:59 as we're filming this right now. And then I look out the window and there's a giant, like, moving size truck. I still don't even know why it's here. But in my head, I assumed something instantaneously. My brain made a connection. It's almost sunset. I had a tiny amount of data and I had a lot of certainty about what was going on. And that's what we're seeing here. Small data, lots of certainty. So when somebody online has a ton of certainty, my rule is the higher the degree of somebody's certainty, the more suspicious I am of that person's claim.
I love that. And I love how you just relayed what happened in your life right there. That was beautiful. It was poetic. And I couldn't agree more. I think certainty is a problem that we're seeing out there, especially based on such little information. When we see somebody confuse observation for conclusion, you know, I rant to you about this all the time, but that's neither here nor there. Chase, thank you so much for being here and adding a lot of insight to this video. And yeah, go enjoy that sunset on a truck that we don't know why it's there.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Go find out.
See ya.
Go do the analysis. Find out why the truck's here.
Will do. See you, man. Thanks for having me on.
So there was certainly a lot to take in on this one, but I think the main takeaway that we wanted to focus on is the difference between observations and conclusions, because nowadays those lines are getting so blurred. I want to thank Chase Hughes once again for joining us and adding so much value to this analysis. For more information on his work, please do check the description below. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Let us know what you thought in the comments about this whole thing, and we'll see you on the next one.